to be quite frank.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Ryan? Okay. Yep, Andy?
So, Dr. Ryan, I think you've been an active participant in this group all along, and you've been very aware and sensitive to balancing. Obviously, public health is number one. That's your focus, but you also are sensitive to the needs of the businesses. We're struggling, I believe, with not in a bad way, but just trying to figure out what is the best thing to do with our marketplace, which has been very successful through the summer, what to do during the winter. Do you have any thoughts for us? I understand, you're not a business person, but I think you understand the needs and what we're trying to do. We're trying to be flexible, keep open options, trying to do our part for public health. Any thoughts as we try to come to a decision here?
Well, just for the record, I was formerly a chief operating officer for a company. So I'm not a narrow-minded PhD, as someone suggested. I have both mindsets. My recommendation to all of you, as it has been from the very beginning of this, is try to be as flexible as you possibly can. If the proverbial hits the fan, and we do have interior restrictions, make it so that you can quickly and easily move outside as much as you possibly can. Is it going to get you at 100% capacity? No. Is it going to get you more than what you have now or what you could have? Absolutely. So I think to Mayor Mike's point, I totally agree, Mike, with everything you just said previously. I think having the option and being able to move quickly and flexibly, nobody has a crystal ball. We're struggling to explain why it is the cases are and the hospitalizations are going up in the way they are in this state alone. It is quite challenging to understand that. And so I don't know anybody that could predict what next month or the following month is going to be like. Things could drop off rapidly or things could continue to escalate in the way they have. So flexibility is really the word of the day. Whether it's an orange barrier or a purple barrier or a unicorn standing out there telling people they can't go this way, I think is less relevant than the fact that you should have a plan in place so that if things do happen, you can take action quickly and you can be as flexible as humanly possible. That's really where we're at this point. Anything that increases your potential capacity would be welcomed. I understand it's a challenge because it's winter and it's cold out and there's certain things you need to make that a reality. But as much as you could have that queued up or figured out, a priority would be beneficial to everybody. But I don't see any restrictions coming from a capacity perspective. And as I've said to Echo Mountain and Loveland Ski Resort and call earlier to them, all of your Achilles heels is your employees. And if they are vaccinated or tested regularly, it significantly reduces the impact that a case has on your business, meaning they may not have to quarantine or isolate at all if they're tested serially twice a week and or they are vaccinated. Those two things can limit the economic impact, more important than a barrier or not a barrier, on your business and your business model moving forward through the winter.
Greg?
Based on what Dr. Ryan said, I'm going to say that we probably will want the orange barriers just to be flexible. That's it.
And the other gem about that is John Bordoni thinks he can get those to us in a couple of weeks. So we will know exactly what we have and we can make a plan for how to move those in, right after the tree lighting on that Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, Mike, I understand the need for safety, no problem with that, but I think we need to figure out some ways. It's the aesthetics of the barriers that I have a problem with. And there were some other weaknesses of those water-filled barriers that John Bordoni mentioned this morning. I think they were minor, but they were still there. It's not a perfect answer. I'm just wondering if we can, hang some sort of decorations on them, something to dress them up. It's aesthetics that bother me. We are a tourist town, and I think we need to keep that in mind. But I see no reason why we can't have safety with accompanying aesthetics.
I have a great point, Bob. I have a technical question about said barriers that are filled with water. When that water freezes, are those barriers tested for that expanding ice that is inevitably to come?
Yes, they are.
Okay, just a practical question, sorry.
No, no, absolutely. And worth throwing out there for sure. You know, the only other way that we could do this is, you know, I know John Bordoni's not going to like it, but keeping the street completely closed and everybody picks up their areas, you know, like they're doing now, with you know, areas looking a little different, a little unique for each business and something like that. I'm still open to that. I'm just nervous about John Bordoni saying, or people having stuff out on the south side and never using it. You know, if Tommy Knockers and Bojo says, oh, we're just going to leave stuff out there in case people want to sit out there. Is that really a good value for what we're trying to do or to those businesses? Greg, you had your again?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say what Bob said. I appreciate definitely the aesthetics are important. Can we paint them? Is that you guys have probably addressed some of this, but I know that the choices are slim because safety is key. Just like the barriers that you guys made that are beautiful, the iron ones. That's just a hard place to get to. Like that, we have protection and it looks good. So
as far as painting them, I don't know. Maybe we can look for some water. Of course, if it snows, it's going to go away. But no, we couldn't paint those things because in the future, when Public Works needs to use them, they're going to have to be orange or white. So if we paint them purple or blue,
okay.
It actually would ruin them and take away from the reflective integrity of those barriers.
Okay.
You know, hanging things on the back side of them, I'm all for that. Putting Christmas lights on them, I'm all for that. We could hang wreaths on them. So I think there are some creative things, especially with people in this group. And I can't see Sadie, but I'm pointing at her. But you know, the creative ideas that each individual business could come up with. I have no problem with that.
You know, Mike, I'm telling you, you know how I feel about those orange things. So it's going to be a challenge for me to feel like those things are going to match a vibe of not looking like a construction zone. Like it's really hard to turn those aesthetics around when people immediately see orange and white in any kind of barrier. It's a mind picture thing. They visualize and notice those things with closure. And that's like the branded image when we talk about the feelings that they evoke. It's construction zone, closed, not approachable. So it's going to be a challenge, but you know me, I guess I am up for challenges. So
Here's
if that's
my
what business is.
Here's where I'm going to leave it at. We leave the street closed. Nobody can set up on the south side of the street. John Bordoni will have to move those barriers to come and plow down through there so he can get the snow out of there. And then only the businesses can keep what they have out there on the north side and activate their area however they want. And we won't bring any barriers in there because we won't have any traffic. So, you know, if the aesthetics is the key thing here, the road needs to remain closed. And we would have to put limitations on setting up on both sides because we're going to have to get a plowed truck down through there to move that snow. Is everybody okay with that idea?
I guess if that's the best answer.
Because then that will make it that we don't have the orange and white barriers. People can continue to keep their areas activated, but we have to make a way for the snow to be plowed and removed out of that street area.
We
Steve?
lose all that parking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'd rather have the street one way. And if a restaurant wants to set up on the street, they figure out, they buy their own barriers or they do whatever they want. But something that's legal, because you're gonna have problems no matter what you do out there with snow removal. And-
Maybe,
or
maybe
ugly
there's a
barriers.
type of cordura or something we can kind of put almost like a blanket thing. I know that's for them to be durable and to look nice. That's going to be hard, but that might be better than them being orange. If we could find like a heavy duty type fabric to basically at least the outsides of them, you know, and if the owners want to put inside also, I don't know. I'm just trying to find a way to get both things done, the parking and the barrier.
John or Jared, do you have anything to add, or Andy?
So one other item that we discussed earlier as far as the barriers was these really large flower pots. You see them a lot at public buildings and the US Capitol. They're gigantic flower pots and they're filled with dirt. They're concrete and they're filled with dirt. You can put plantings in them, you can put a little tree in them, that sort of thing. And I don't know how easy they are to move. Obviously, they're going to be heavy when they're filled, but my understanding, they're used to block vehicles from accessing buildings and what have you. So I'm just wondering if that is another option. I don't know what the delivery time might be, but if we, in those areas that wanted to be activated on the north side, if we got a series of large flower pots, someone, I think Steve suggested maybe barrels in between the spaces, that would stop or at least slow down a vehicle, I think, nearly as well as a Jersey barrier. They're round. They're not designed for higher speed, but that's not a high-speed road. I just wonder if that might be one other option we could check into, see what the delivery time is, and just put those large flower pots around the areas that need to be activated, because we're only talking a few areas, as I understand it, on the north side.
John, Jared, have y'all checked into pricing on those?
Yes. We have, they're approximately the same. Depending on what they are, they can be about the same as the barriers, or they're going to be about the same as some of the other more expensive options we've priced. They're not they're not a bad option to look at for a traffic calming.
Sadie?
We've looked at some that are around, you know, we know there's concrete ones, there's some steel ones that are made. They run 1,300 to 2,000 pounds on average, usually. Lead time for the concrete ones, I don't have a good time for that.
I do think that might be a way also to solve the thought of what to do with all the barrels, you know, a way to kind of use what we have already without having to invest too much more, and being able to use them as like the anchor points where they're protected from the cars in that way. And I also will support and agree with what Steve and Stephanie says, you know, just kind of going, we're going to keep it closed, but waste all of that parking. It's a challenging, I agree. It's almost like trying to find a weird balance in the middle.
Yeah,
Steve?
So for the sake of conversation, I just brought up the specs on those water-filled barriers. And the way you keep them from freezing is you pour 4 ounces of calcium chloride per gallon of water in there, and they don't freeze. The same thing for oak barrel, and they're 42 by 72 by 24, 835 pounds. An oak barrel filled with water is 640 pounds. So you can fit 2 barrels in the place of one of these. So when you do the math, pretty comparable as far as weight. I don't know about all the deflections and different ordinances they fill. I'm just throwing it out there for conversation.
All right, thank you, Steve. I'm open to the pots, because those can be used in the summertime. We can put flowers or little trees and stuff in those, so it makes more sense, because again, just like the orange and white, it's something, if the city buys it, it has other uses that the city's going to use, instead of us buying something that's only dedicated to businesses. And I'm throwing that out there because what if somebody says, well, you just spent $2,000 to put this barrier around the wildfire. I want $2,000 to do this to the front of my building. Yeah, I'm just trying to think, you know, I'm playing the devil's advocate and what some property owners and business owners may look at. And the community,
There-
why we're spending all this money for only a few businesses. So I like the big flower pot, heavy flower pots. If we think we can find them and get them out here. And I'm glad you did the calculations on that, Steve, that we can space those out, put barrels, you know, a couple barrels in between. And that would probably satisfy the safety needs that I think we're looking for.
there is something to be said to the economic impact that the downtown district has on the community. And if the flower pots would be something that can benefit that entire district more than just the barriers, then I think that the fiscal responsibility there is a little bit different.
I like the portable bollard flower pot, basically, is what it is. It's acting as a giant bollard. And if we can find something, that would look way better than even the Jersey barriers. And you guys could reuse them. It has multiple uses. It's not just for this occasion.
Yep, no, I'm liking this conversation. John, you had something?
And try and see if we can get some in a relatively short period of time, or see what the delivery time would be on those things.
I think as long as we get them by January 1, you kind of, or sooner, that might be, you know, I wouldn't say no just because it's going to take a little bit is all.
Overall, I think that that's a really good solution to both things. You know, I'm with Sadie as far as the aesthetics and yeah, stop, don't go any further with the Jersey barriers. So I think with the flower pots, I would guess that any of the businesses would also be more than happy to put in money to put, you know, fake Christmas trees or some of the decorations, you know, to help with that kind of thing. If the city goes ahead and helps with the paying for those.
Does the group have a preference for one of the designs that you see on your screen?
That top one, commercial concrete planter, looks pretty cool.
This
I
one?
mean, the Victorian's kind of sexy, but that one's it's pretty universal. Looks
Those look
big
like
enough
they're
to stop
about-
a car.
It would be a short
1400.
discussion on color.
And what are these made out of, John?
This is concrete, this particular one. I can get the specs for it. It looks like natural concrete.
Yeah, but 6-foot diameter, that's substantial. I like that a
That's
lot.
gigantic, yeah.
Yeah, go back to all the, take it, okay.
Hey, and John, I'm looking on another website and I'm seeing one with stone in it. It's like small stone aggregate in the concrete, which makes it look real nice. It's $600.
Which
Made
one
up.
is, which one, Andy?
Well, I'm looking at another website here. I can share it. Give me just a second here.
So
John?
another thing that I like about these, Bob and I have been talking about this for years and getting these. We wanted to figure out how we can rehang our flower pots since we can't hang them on the light post. This gives us something that we could actually put something down in there with a hook at the top and hang flowers on top as well. And, or we can use these, we talked about stringing lights across the
Yeah,
street. You know, this is something that we could use as, you know, doing something like that with too, by putting some poles in it, you know, having the flowers and everything at the bottom, and then using these to string lights across the road.
Yeah, these are great and versatile, you know, like having the tree in them, you know, even if we do like for cost effective wise at this current, you know, we do less expensive trees or even, you know, artificial trees for this season, putting something in them that then we can put, like, you know, solar powered lights on. They mount, there's enough space in them to do a lot of different aesthetic, really beautiful displays in them. They're really versatile.
One thing to consider is how you're going to move them when they're full, if you need to move them.
Mm.
So I noticed some of them have like fork truck slots, and we could use our forklift to move them around town. But those round ones, I'm not sure how you.
What are those on the left there, John? Who's navigating the screen?
Oh, I am, Andy.
And what were the ones that had the little, I see what Steve's saying. These things weigh that much, we're gonna have a means of moving them. And
Those really
There you
big
go.
ones look
There.
like
yeah,
you could just,
See, those are got feet on them. I wonder if those could be moved with our equipment. Do you see?
you
I
need
think-
forks.
do they have any of those that are colored?
Yeah,
Uh,
Those come in different colors, or they just gonna be that cement color?
I'm looking on a different website, and they have some really nice ones, like Andy was talking about, with the impregnated aggregate that has fork truck slots and stuff in it. So there's a whole bunch of them out there to pick from.
You know, in terms of moving, a weight certainly is not a problem for city equipment on something this size. The other thing is that I think we are going to need to set a lot of them on spacers anyway to make them level and not just tipped. The entire street is crowned, so nothing we set there will be level. And so we're going to have to raise them on one side anyway, just to make them look tidy and straight.
So Steve, how much were the weights of the barriers filled with water? 6,000 pounds?
No, like 800 to 1,300, depending what size you get.
Okay,
Yeah, the ones we were looking at were 6 feet long. I don't recall the height. I could look that up. So they,
Those were 36 that we had at first.
and how much are these flower pots weighing, Andy?
Not sure. I have to dig a little bit to see a weight with, a loaded weight. You can get them off of Wayfair.
I'm sure those 6-foot ones would be 1.5 tons anyway. Full.
Yeah. Again, I have seen them all over, in a lot of urban areas for protection of buildings. They put them along the sidewalks to provide an extra layer of protection. So I think we might have to check into what the specs are and how they're rated, but well, one thing we could do is a little more research on this topic and see, on the planner topic, maybe come back with a couple options to the next meeting. Is that something we want to look at?
But I would suggest that next Monday after our meeting that we're ready to pull the trigger on something.
Yep.
Weeks are going by. We need to be ready to pull the trigger ASAP. So why don't we do that? Jared and John and Andy pull some more. Anybody else? Sadie?
Can we agree, though, that moving forward, we think that the best thing for us is one-way traffic with some sort of agreed, so we at least have made that decision, and that decision is ready to be pushed, and that next week we're just looking at the aesthetics of what this new style of barrier might look like.
Absolutely. I would say that was a big part of this meeting. So yes, why don't we say that's what we're going to do? We're going to open up to one way eastbound, and we're going to do our research of how fast we can get. Here's the other thing. I don't know how many Jersey barriers it would take. Say these things are going to take 6 or 8 weeks to get to us. Could we bring in some, if we need 15 or 18 barriers to go ahead and set up until they get here, we could take a look at that. I know we had like 35, 45 last time. We know that Tommyknockers isn't going to need them. Westbound and Down is not going to need them on their backside. Smoking Yard is not going to need them. So I think that we could really, and the other thing we could do is, and we could maybe get these from CDOT again, bring them in and we could space them out and put barrels in between them just like we're planning on doing anyway. So we just want to make sure once we find out the time frame of getting these delivered and what that, because we know what's going on with the supply chain, it's so we don't want these things sitting out on the Pacific coast for 14 weeks and then winter time's just about over. We'll still need them and bring them back in for the streetscapes and things like that. And I think this is another, more I think about this, I think this is great because we can incorporate these pots into our master plan. These are the flower pots or the tree pots, if you will, that we can incorporate into that plan. So I really like, I think this is a good investment for the city, not only for this purpose, but future purpose as well.
This is maybe a detail at this point, but it seems to me the round ones are rather inefficient in terms of burning up space. And the rectangular or square ones, I think, fit our downtown. They're a little less modern, perhaps, whatever. But I think we get more bang for the square footage that they use out of the ones with the square corners. Just a thought.
Show of hands, we'll go with rectangular or square. Everybody likes that? Okay, let's do that. We won't worry about round one. Greg, you had something else? Oh, he raised his hands in favor, I guess.
Okay.
Is that what you have in mind, Bob?
Yeah. So anything like that, whatever design, but I'm just saying in the basic shape is more efficient. Round ones waste space.
And
We don't have a lot of extra width in the street.
Commercial, it says round commercial, backup one, Andy. Security plan, large rectangular precast concrete exposed aggregate security barrier. So it's basically saying that they're using these for some security.
Look at this. You can get them from Granger. It's a round one. You can get anything from Granger. Now that's $1,000, $1,100.
Yeah, that's Granger.
Okay, so let's do that. Everybody, we have a consensus of one way closing Minor Street. Opening Minor Street to one way eastbound again. We will find out the delivery time and bring back next Monday some aesthetic. What we have 3 or 4 different choices. We'll make the choice then, and the next day we can get delivery time, or even maybe before the meeting, we can ask and find out how long it would take to get these things.
I think that's a great solution, what you guys have come up with, these like portable bollard / planters. As long as, and I like the ideas, everybody's conscious of how they look. I would entrust you guys to make, final decisions on, because if the town's gonna do it, they should kind of pick them out so that it has a double usage.
Okay.
So Mayor, if I may, two items to add to that consensus. Are we all in agreement that assuming we can't get them, well, if we don't get them for that week after Thanksgiving weekend, that we just continue to keep the street closed until we can make this transition? And I'm not talking weeks and weeks and weeks, but my guess is we may not hit that week after Thanksgiving. It may take a little longer to get these.
And that's why I want to kind of get a time frame of what they're saying it's going to, because if they say it's not going to be until March,
Right.
hurry up and figure out something else to get through this winter.
Sure. And the other piece, of course, we've had a lot of concern about resiliency and being agile and all of that, which makes a lot of sense. We've certainly gotten used to that. I think our go-to is that if things do get worse with the pandemic and the street does need to be activated, we would just go back to closing the street as it is through the summer. And that can be done very quickly. So if we start getting in a bad spot, that can be done same day almost. Okay.
All right, everybody's on board with that? All right. Very good. Good meeting. I appreciate this group. Alyssa, do you have anything to share with us while you're on?
I don't think so. Thanks for including me in this. It's been really interesting.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Alyssa, for being with us. All right. Good work, everybody. We will start the process on this, get some information back, and we will see you next Monday at 2:00.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Thanks for the creativity.
Mhm.